Hello everyone and welcome back to Fly From Home. It's Internet Catman back here with another Microsoft Flight Simulator product for you, but this time it's a bit of an exclusive first look at something new from Black Square, the guys who brought us the USA taxiways and Europe taxiways, and also the little Velocity XL canard wing aeroplane that I had a look at last time out. Now, you may be thinking, Kitty, that looks an awful lot like a default Cessna Caravan. And yeah, you'd be right, because it is, with an important difference. If we pop inside, you'll see that it doesn't have the Garmin, I think it's Garmin 1000, or is it Garmin 3000? I can't remember. Yeah, it's a full Garmin glass cockpit in the default aircraft. This has the much more common Steam Gauge cockpit, which you would find in the vast majority of caravans. I think they've only really been fitting the full glass panels to them in recent years, and it obviously costs an awful lot of money. So you probably find most operators in the real world are still using the old-fashioned Steam Gauges. So, what are you getting in this mod other than just some Steam Gauges? Well, an awful lot, actually, by the sounds of things. So this isn't just a mod to replace the glass panels, which have kind of been copping a lot of hate, really, from the community, haven't they? I think people are a little bit sick and tired of glass panels, because an awful lot of the default aeroplanes have them. And it's resulted in everyone sort of harking after these sort of Steam Gauge type cockpits. So it's not just a mod that takes out the glass panel, it does an awful lot of other stuff as well. Now, this thing comes with a really big manual, and it is the manual's available to have a look at online. It's the product is going to be sold through Just Flight, so if you look at their sort of products in development page, you can go onto the Steam Gauge Caravan section and have a look at the manual. It's already up there for you to have a look at in PDF format, and it's a good job it comes with a thick manual, because there's an awful lot of stuff that's involved here. You've got, first of all, you'll notice that the radios here, these are all kind of custom units. You'll recognise the good old PMS 750 Garmin here. So this is a mod, a free mod with a paid version, which I'm a huge fan of. If you've seen any of my other videos, this thing is a really capable unit, and very much recommend you picking up the free one or the paid one if you fancy paying out for a few more extra features. This would be a default 430, but the mod actually recommends you get another mod from PMS, which is a 430 mod, which improves the functionality of this thing. This is a completely custom KNS-80 RNAV system. So this is I'll talk a little bit about this when we get things fired up, but this is a really, really interesting, very, very awkward, kind of complicated old system, which is what light aircraft and mid-sized aircraft like the Caravan would probably be using in the 80s to navigate around before the advent of GPS for everyone. ADF and the transponder probably you'll recognise from default aircraft. Cap 140 autopilot, Bendix King Cap 140, again another default item, but there's a mod that this product recommends you get to improve the functionality of this thing, and I have installed that, so we'll see how we get on with that today. And we also have a Bendix RDR 1150XL weather radar, which is very, very functional. The tilts and the steer functions and the vertical profile and all the rest of that sort of stuff all work, and you see you've got this little custom panel thing here that looks like a little TV. So that's new and added to the aeroplane as well. So there's a whole bunch of new avionics that have been added to this aeroplane, which is great. There's also state saving of panel configurations, frequencies, cabin aesthetics. So you have some little, not exactly the most realistic way of doing it, I must say, but there are little switches here where you can switch out the panel config and put different things in place of different stuff to your own desire. And it will save various different positions of switches and things like that as well. It's not full state saving, but certain important things will be saved from flight to flight. As I've already said, it's got a GTN 750, and it's also got the GTN XI 750 compatible with it as well. So that's pretty handy if you guys, if anyone uses that thing. Electrical meter that accurately responds to all the loads. I'll show you how that works. This little thing here. So when we fire up, I'll show you how all that kind of works. Battery charge current accurately simulated, so the battery can be run down and then it can be recharged using using external power. Too high a current will fry the battery. Sweet. I wonder if they charge you for a replacement. This is a good part of this mod. So every single one of these circuit breakers can be pulled, and it's accurately modelled. So they've fully modelled the aircraft electrical system. So pulling the circuit breakers for a bus will knock that entire bus out, so like that will knock all the systems attached to that bus out. Knocking out individual motors and things like that will stop them from working. It's all correctly modelled, which is really quite impressive. The standby alternator system is fully modelled, so as part of the pre-flight test I'll show you how that works and how it kicks out and back in again depending on whether the generators are working properly. There are 30 plus normal and abnormal checklists with native control and instrument highlighting. So let's have a look at that. So as you can see, there's a huge number of checklists saved in the Microsoft Flight Simulator checklist system, and all of these items on here can be highlighted and zoomed into, and you can see they light things up as required. So very, very handy. If you're not all that familiar with this aircraft, which I'm not, again, disclaimer, I've never flown one of these in real life. I've never even sat in one of these in real life. So unfortunately, at a little bit of a disadvantage there, unfortunately, when trying to explain this aeroplane to you. Once the final release version of this comes out, bear in mind this is a very, very early build version that I'm playing around with today. So some features maybe aren't fully implemented yet, and perhaps there are going to be some things to change, like the cabin might change a little bit in sort of aesthetics and stuff like that before it gets released. But when the full version is released, one of the chaps on our Discord server is a real-life Caravan pilot, and he's going to have a look at it for us and check it out and see how close to real life it comes. But unfortunately, my experience with turboprop aeroplanes is a little bit limited. Anyway, carry on. So we've already talked about the KNS-80. I'll try and show you a little bit of what that thing can do. It's a very complicated old system compared to modern GPSs. I did fly an aeroplane with one of those fitted in real life once, and I kind of got my head around it for a while because I had to do an IR renewal in it. But I can barely remember any of the stuff that it can do. But it's a pretty clever little system. Custom weather radar, already talked about that. Improved turbine dynamics. So they've completely redone the engine handling model. So you'll see all sorts of things like the ITT spiking on startup, gas generator RPM, improper engine management will cause damage to the engine, which will then cause an engine failure, cause stress to the starter motor. All these things, all these sorts of things are modelled. Hot starts are possible as well, and all the engine limitations, things like that, are printed in the rather extensive manual that I described previously. So a lot of features when it comes to the modelling of the, I believe it's a PT6, Pratt & Whitney PT6 engine, very ubiquitous free power turbine turboprop engine. So yeah, pretty handy. Emergency power lever and standby flat motor switch work. So these things here, these are all given correct modelling. Emergency checklists are obviously provided for those. Compass controller. So this is something that's pretty impressive. This little unit here shows the control for the slaved HSI, which is connected to a magnemometer. I can never remember the correct saying of that thing, but it's basically a little device that measures the Earth's magnetic field to a far greater degree than these sort of old-fashioned compasses. It usually sits out in the wingtip where it's far away from any kind of electrical disturbance, and it feeds into the HSI, which then feeds all the other directional instrumentation in the airplane, including the RMI here. The way you can test this, so you can switch it to free mode. So slaved is where it's connected to the magnetometer, so you can turn it to free, and then you can rotate it around and then switch it back to slaved, and it will realign itself and all that good stuff. There's a little indicator here which shows whether it's aligned or not. When it's in the middle, obviously it's aligned. When it's not, then it's not lined up properly, and you can use the manual selection to adjust a little bit as required. And all that stuff works properly and is properly modelled, so it's pretty impressive. We've got an oxygen system which depletes based on pilot and co-pilot weight and altitude. So presumably this is how heavy you set your crew up in here. I mean, as is, we don't have anybody on board. Oh no, we do. We have a pilot and a co-pilot, 82 kilos, a little bit heavier than I am in real life. But yeah, so maybe if you put a really chonky guy in here and say, I don't know, 100 kilo bloke, massive rugby player, sitting in the co-pilot seat, that'll deplete your oxygen a little bit faster. So that's pretty interesting. And you can see the handle up here, which controls the oxygen, and the gauge here, which tells you if you've depleted it or not. So that is pretty good. Now, a few little FAQs about this before we get into actually flying it. Having this installed does not mean you can no longer fly the default Caravan. This is an addition to the default Caravan, so you can select either this or the default one. It doesn't affect the installation of the default one at all. You do, however, need the default one to be installed for this to work. It's compatible with all third-party add-on liveries for the default Cessna, so if you've got a favourite livery that you like to put on the default G1000 Caravan, you can convert it over to work with this aeroplane, and there's kind of a guide in the manual to how you do that. And they have tweaked the aerodynamics to make them more realistic. However, that's not the primary purpose of this mod. The primary purpose is really systems modelling. But according to the developer, he does reckon that the aerodynamics are now compatible with third-party mods as opposed to the default aeroplanes, which are pretty basic, let's face it. So all in all, there's an awful lot that comes with this. But, and here's the but, it is quite expensive. It's about £21–22, I believe. You can pop over to the Just Flight store and have a look at what it is in terms of the currency for whereabouts you are in the world. Because, like I said, it is on the Just Flight website in the in development section. So, for what is essentially a very, very in-depth mod, it is, you are paying the price of essentially a whole new aeroplane. But I mean, I guess you are kind of getting an all-new aeroplane with this. You're getting all of the engine handling, you're getting all of these avionics, all the systems modelling depth with the circuit breakers and all that kind of stuff. So you're essentially getting a close to study level Cessna Caravan, which just uses the exterior model of the default. So I can see arguments developing either way, but this is just an early release version, like I said, and I'm not going to be releasing my full thoughts on the product until we see a full release. Right, I'll shut up about that now, and we'll crack on with doing some flying. So I'm here at this is Land's End Airport. So I thought we'd go for something a little bit sort of short field, so we can show off the characteristics of this aeroplane, and maybe do a flight which you might employ a Caravan to do in real life. I'm going to hop over to the Scilly Isles, which are a bunch of little islands just off the southwest coast of Cornwall. In fact, let's put a map up. There we go. So this is where we are, right on the tip of the UK here, and we're going over to the Scilly Isles, which are over here. There we go. Look, we're going to this airport right here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the aeroplane pushed back because I don't think I really have enough space to turn it around. So I'm going to pop the parking brake off and just use the default pushback button. But of course, because this is a default aeroplane, it's all linked up to the flight simulator. Little pushback tug dude, he's going to do his job for us, which is handy. Anytime now, mate. As you can see at this airport, a lot of the spots are actually set up for helicopters, because I believe most of the traffic that comes in and out of here is actually rotary wing, big transport helicopters. There we go. Pop the parking brake back on now. Right, and then I'll pull the checklist out. We'll crack on and try and get this thing fired up without lighting it on fire. So, before starting engine, pre-flight inspection is complete. Cabin doors. So this is something which slightly annoying. They haven't added opening doors or anything like that, but I'm guessing that would require custom animations and all sorts of stuff for the default aeroplane. So maybe a Sobo needs to work on that. Yeah, cabin doors all latched because they don't do anything. Parking brake is set. Control locks, we don't have any of those, but they are removed. Seats and belts secure. Switches are off. Yeah, certainly seems that way. Ignition switch to norm, so that's down here. There we go, onto normal. Circuit breakers all in, so they are all in there. I will pop some of these when we get some power running, just so I can show you that they do actually work. Fuel selectors both on, they're on the overhead, so we'll click those over there. That's good. Oxygen pressure, I'll click that so I can get a good look at that. So it needs to be 1550 to 1850, I believe it's on the upper end of that, so that's good. Ventilation and aircon, so all the aircon switches are down here. Keep it on cold because it's rather warm in the UK today, for once. bleed air heat should be off. That's a little red switch there. Emergency power lever is in normal, which it is. Power lever set to idle, which it is. Prop lever, right, full forward. So this is one of the things that I've noticed that maybe isn't massively realistic. So when you shut down the Caravan, you pull the prop lever into the feather position before you cut the fuel off. So when the propeller stops, it's in the feathered position like this. And this is normal for turboprop engines, as far as I know, unless it's a geared turboprop. If it's a geared engine, then the prop will generally have some kind of start lock in there, which locks the prop into a fully fine position for starting. With a free power turbine turboprop engine, generally the prop is in the feathered position when it stops, and it was like that on the Dash 8, it's like that on the King Air. So any of the turboprops I've got any kind of experience with all have that kind of thing, and this has the well, if not the same, but a very, very similar engine to the King Air. So I'm presuming it's the same. Now watch what happens when I put the prop lever forward. So I'm going to do this on my Bravo, and as you can see, look at that, the prop just unfeathers itself. Now I'm pretty sure that the real aeroplane does not do that, because there's no oil pressure in the governor for it to do this. So how could it possibly move the prop? The engine can start up with the prop still in the feathered position, because the prop isn't directly connected to the engine. The prop is connected to something called a free power turbine, which sits at the back, of the core of the jet engine. And as the jet engine spins up, it starts to blow air through the turbine and slowly starts to spin it round, and you'll start getting oil pressure, and that's when the prop will slowly start to unfeather itself. So it doesn't need to be set to fine like in a piston engine aeroplane or in a direct geared turbine engine, because there's no actual resistance to the engine starting caused by the prop being at feather. So yeah, perhaps that's just default Asobo logic, and the mod can't do anything to remedy that. But maybe they can, I don't know, maybe Mr. Black Square can crack on with that at some point, not sure. Fuel condition lever to cut off, that it is. Fuel cut off pushed in, so that's one of these down here I believe, yeah, there we go. That is pushed in. Firewall valve pushed in, that's the one down here, which it is. Battery switch on, so I'm going to do this on my good old honeycomb yoke, there we go. Now, all of the sounds are the default ones, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because they are pretty good sounds in the default aircraft. However, all the switch sounds have been modelled, are custom modelled and added. Annunciator test, so all the panel here, check they all light up as they do there. Fire detection warning test, so again, not really sure that's accurate, because generally when you have a fire you want an audio warning as well as just a little red light here, but like I said, never flown a Caravan in real life, so maybe it is just a little light that pops up here. But most of the aeroplanes I've flown, well, every aeroplane I've flown in real life that's had an engine fire warning system, it comes with an audio warning including a light. So flap lever up, so yeah, that's in the up position. No smoking, seatbelt lights as required, so well, we're not going to need passengers back there today, but we'll put the no smoking on, because we don't want anyone lighting up back there. That's all good. Let's go on to the battery engine start. So there's multiple different checklists for different types of start, in case you're on external power or whatever, which is pretty impressive. Beacon light on, so I'm also going to put the nav lights on actually, because that usually is the universal symbol for the aeroplane is powered. When the beacon goes on, that's the universal symbol for I'm about to start my engine, so don't come too close or you'll get minced. Avionics 1 switch on, so there's two Avionics buses. I'll turn the first one on, which is going to bring on the first of our Avionics. Transponder, ADF, autopilot, and the 750 here. Emergency power annunciator extinguished, yes, it's gone out. Propeller, thank you for that. Propeller area clear, yeah, there's no little pixel men that we're going to chop up. Fuel boost pump on, that's one of these down here, so flick that all the way forward, you can hear the sound of that going. Low pressure fuel light extinguished, which it is. Fuel flow should be reading none, so which it is there. And then we flick the starter switch into the start position. Right, here we go. There we go. So the electric starter is starting to spin the engine core around. You can see the prop isn't turning because there's not enough airflow going through the turbine. Now there is, so it's starting to spin round. And we're looking for 12% stable. Once we got 12%, I'm going to push forward the condition lever into low idle. We can hear the engine light off. and making sure that the ITT doesn't exceed the maximum, which hasn't. It's stayed fairly cold, so we've not got a hot start. Got plenty of oil pressure. Fuel flow should be between 90 and 140. Yeah, it's about right now. ITT 1090 max. Yeah, never got anywhere near that. It just kind of came up to the top of the green zone, so that's good. NG greater than 52%, which it is. The starter can go off. And starter engaged, annunciator is extinguished. Engine instruments check. So yeah, we're all in the green across the board here. Happy days. Generator switch. So as you can see, generator off is illuminated here, but when you reset, that then fires the generator up. We've now got electrical power being charged from there, and we'll check using this. So as you can see there, generator load is positive. And you can see the amps in the positive there. Battery charging current negative, so flick it to battery, and you can see that battery current is in the negative there, which means it's being charged. Generator off, annunciator is extinguished, which it is. Fuel boost pump can come off. There we go. Fuel boost pump annunciator extinguished, which it is. The whole panel is off there. I'm not sure if this is in the right order because the weather radar is on the other bus, but okay, we're off or standby, which it is. It's in the standby position at the moment. Then we're going to put bus 2 on, which is, the switch is down here, but I've got a switch on the honeycomb for it. You can see all the other avionics now firing up. I cannot tell you how great it is to have a proper weather radar. Sim Update 10 is apparently bringing all this kind of functionality into all the other aeroplanes, but this one has been custom coded for this particular product, so very nice, I like it. We'll do a spectrum test to make sure the screen's working as it should. It's the RT failure and all the colours there, so that shows it's working as it should do. There we go. Nav lights is already on, mate. Suction check. So there's no values here, but yeah, okay, we're in the green band, so I'm presuming that means it's good. Remote compass, labelled and lined, so that's over here. So if we put this to free, drive it out, you can see all of the HSI and the RMI driving out. So what I usually do in aircraft that are fitted with something like this, I drive it out by 30 degrees, flick it back to slaved, and then watch everything realign, just to make sure the system is working properly, and then we can double check it against our little whiskey compass up here. Although this thing is less accurate than these, so don't expect them to be perfectly aligned 100% of the time. Ventilation and defrost, well, it's a lovely day, so we don't need any defrost on, but we may want to make sure we've got some ventilation. So I'm just going to turn that to ventilate. We do have air conditioning, so we could put aircon on. In fact, let's put the aircon on. Let's pop that on for now. Radios checked, so obviously I'd set all the radios up, but we're not flying online or anything like that today. We can, however, tune in some nav frequencies just so I can show you how all these things work. So Land's MVOR isn't far away, it's 1142, so let's pop that in. There we go, you've got a text side end there, and we are in VLOC mode, so we may be getting, yeah, we are getting a signal to our CDI up there. I'm going to put 1142 on here as well. There we go. So as you can see, it's just working as a DME basically at the moment. But what this thing can do, if you're familiar with how to work it, is you can put a waypoint in space based on that VOR along any of the radials at any distance from that, as long as you can still pick a signal up from it basically. So you could put a custom, you could basically make a virtual VOR that you can put anywhere. So you could pop it on the end of a runway and fly a VOR approach or something like that. So it's actually a very powerful system, but it does take some getting used to, and it would take far too long for me to try to talk through all the different functions and things like that in today's videos. But just suffice to say, all of the functions are on there and do work, and on the full review video we'll be looking into that in a little bit more depth. ADF, so I think, yeah, we got a 321 Scilly Isles NDB, so we'll pop that in. Okay, 321 is set. I wouldn't expect to be picking anything up just yet, but that's going to be handy as we get closer to our target. So they're all set up, and obviously I'd do the comm radios as well if I was in real life. This is another startup checklist. That's an emergency, so kind of better going over to engine clear. Do we have to do that? No. Bear with. Right, so we'll skip to the taxi checklist now. So flight instruments. I'm just be lazy and hit B to make sure the altimeter is set properly, but the airspeed indicator, so we've got one of these little movable TAS rings, so we'll just make sure that that's working as it should do, which it is. I don't think there's any way to move those little bars. We'll just assume that they're properly lined up. That should be reading airfield elevation, which it is. This is already set up. We'll put runway. In fact, that's a good question. Let's see what the wind is. Okay, I've gone for Culdrow's Navy Air Base. That's pretty close to where we are right now. So we've got 1023 or 3021, which is what we've got set there. Wind's 340, so it's a northerly wind. Okay, so just put a quick route in for our flight over to St. Mary's in the Scilly Isles. There's actually an instrument approach on there, which I didn't even realise. There's an NDB approach from runway 32. I'm going to take the northerly runway here at St. Just, which is going to be runway 34, I think, and then it's runway 32 to land at Scilly Isles. That'll be all good. So let's put that on runway heading, light that up, pop that into GPS mode. So, yeah. Flight instrument sets checked. Cabin lighting is off. Cockpit lighting is not on anyway. Taxi lights, we'll pop that on when we start moving. Inertial separator. So this is a device to prevent debris and things like that being sucked into the engine as you taxi. So we'll turn that on. Parking brake release, brakes, test remote, compass aligned. Checked. Right, ready to go. So let's pop the taxi light on. There we go. Make sure all idle. Release the brake. And of course we're going backwards. Cool. That's interesting. I think I may have had reverse in just a little bit on the throttle there. Okay, so in real life when you're taxiing around with a turboprop, you've got a gate that you can pull the throttle through, and it will give you beta range essentially. So beta range is when the prop pretty much just discs off to the airflow. If you keep pulling it into beta range, you'll obviously get reverse. Now that slows you down significantly, and you barely ever need to use your brakes when you're taxiing around in most turboprops. Now again, not 100% sure if it's like that in the Caravan, but unfortunately because of the limitations of Microsoft Flight Simulator at the moment, they couldn't add that kind of that feature to this product. It may come in the future, who knows, if they improve how propeller modelling is a little bit further than it already is. I know there's been some big advances in the way the propellers work in the sim up to date, but there's still a little way to go. Just realised I took like the most convoluted and stupid route to get to this runway. I should have just stayed there and then turned left, but hey ho, never mind. Wouldn't be one of these videos unless I make some kind of stupid error. So before takeoff ramp, so parking brake is set, seats and seatbelts will assume everyone's secure. Flight controls, so left hand down, can't really see, right hand down, can't really see, full aft, full forward, rudder full left, rudder full right, free hand, correct, we'll assume standby alternator comes on. And then we switch to the alternator position here and we check we've got 0 volts, which we have. And we check that the generator should be 30 to 60 amps, and hang on, yeah, we've got about 60 amps on there, so that's good. We're now going to trip the generator switch, so like that, and you can see that's fallen to 0 because we've turned it off. And now the alternator, as you can see, is now positive, so it's picked up that 60 amp load. We're going to switch this to reset now, which is going to reset the generator. Okay, fuel selectors both on. Yeah, fuel quantities checked. Fuel cutoff is pushed. Trim set for takeoff. Yeah, we're in the takeoff range there, and we're lined up on the rudder trim. Flaps, so we'll take 10 degrees flaps. Then we're going to run the power up to 400 foot-pounds of torque. And that's our torque gauge up here. Which we've got. Suction, we're going to check in the green, which it is. Boss volts, we're looking for 24 volts minimum, which we have more than that. Inertial separator, so we've got the inertial separator on, so let's turn it off for this next test. What we're doing is turning it on and checking the ITT. So, pull it out. You see the ITT is slowly rising there. Turn it off. The ITT is dropping again, which is just showing that the inertial separator is working. Engine instruments, we'll check that they're all in the green, looking happy, yeah, all normal. Power lever can come all the way back to idle. So yeah, you can see the animation there for the little thing that you need to pull up to pull it over the gate. So normally idle would be about there, and this would be in the beta range. You can see the beta range comes from like there to there. But hey ho, maybe they'll be able to model that in future updates. Piso heater, so we're going to check the electrical load from the piso heat now. So I'm going to turn the piso heats on, switch on there, and the generator load should increase. So let's do that again with the correct setting. You can see it pops up there. Piso heater back off again. Windshield anti-icing, so let's pop that on. You can see the generator load again increases for that, which shows it's working. Prop de-ice, so now we're looking up here at the prop anti-ice amps. Separate little gauge up here, which shows it is working. And back off again. 20 to 24 amps, yeah, in the green zone. Prop de-ice is off. Airframe de-ice, so pop the boots on. Now I don't believe there are animated boots. I can't really see anything working here. But as you can see, they're set to kind of an automated cycle. So instead of just you turn them on, they blow up, you turn them off, they come down again, the boots will cycle. So different boots will inflate at different times, crack the ice off, and then deflate. So you basically just turn the system on and forget about it for the most part, and it will manage the icing for you, which is pretty clever. It's kind of how the Dash 8's boots work, as not just a de-icing system, but also an anti-icing system. So I'll pop those off. Piso heater we'll put on in a second when we're about to take off. Ice protection we don't need. Autopilot master, so we'll check the autopilot, bring the yoke back for this one. And I guess I should probably align the heading bug. Just doing that on my throttle quadrant. There we go. So autopilot master. Interesting. Now that worked earlier. So for some reason the autopilot doesn't want to go on. It might be me just being stupid, but yeah, before I was able to actually turn that on and test it, but oh well. We can't really preset it then, I guess. Oh, the altitude is in there. Battery charging current less than 10 amps, so it's got a battery, and yeah, it is. Weather radar is required. Let's leave it off for now. Strobe lights we'll put on in a sec. Annunciator test and consider. Yes, I'm considering it right now. It's all off. Flight instruments set and check. Already checked those. Everything looks normal. And so I'll put the heading bug back around to runway heading. This is so slow. I'll do it with this. There we go. That's better. Storm windows. Yep, all closed. Fuel condition lever high idle. So we're going to push that up now. High idle. Parking rate release, yeah, okay, and then it's just takeoff, so then it's transponder, inertial sep, and all the rest of that good stuff. So we are going to turn the inertial separator back on again because we're on grass at the moment. We don't want to be sucking anything up into that. And get ready to go. So parking brake off, give it a bit of power. Okay, so approach path is presumably clear. Transponder can go on altitude reporting. Piso heat coming on, and the lights all on. So the standby electric powers come on because of the low RPM. Just struggling to keep the speed down a little bit then. Like I said, that's because the beta range of the propeller isn't fully modelled in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so to actually have that effect, braking effect that comes from that. which you'd normally get in a turboprop. Right, okay, we are runway aligned. I don't expect the takeoff rolling is going to be particularly long, because it is a Caravan at the end of the day. Wind the power up, release the brakes. Be careful not to cross the little red line on the torque meter there. And off we go. Okay, looking for 300 feet AGL, past 95 knots, retract the flaps. Quick look out the left, and off we go. Excellent rate of climb on this aeroplane. It really shoots up, very efficient, well, very effective wing for generating lift. Taxiing and landing lights can go. Inertial separator can go off now. Let's give ourselves a direct to. Just realised I gave ourselves a direct to the airport we just taken off from. Pretty stupid. Never mind. So in terms of flight dynamics, I mean, it's a slightly improved default Cessna Caravan, so it's pretty good. Certainly feels fairly heavy. It's not as doesn't really have that really kind of weighty feel that some third-party add-ons have, but it certainly isn't bad. You see with the climb, the torque's actually dropping off, so some rubbish pilot, I wasn't monitoring that, but as you climb, the torque drops off as the ambient pressure decreases. So I'm going to pull that back a bit, pull the prop back to about 17. Well, let's go for 1800 RPM there. See the limitations just on the side here. So given that this isn't really a test of aerodynamics, it's more a test of systems, I'm going to turn over to the autopilot now. It's coming in roll and out hold mode, which are correct. So I'm now going to make sure my heading bug is aligned. And make sure my direct track is aligned as well. So it should be 246. Somewhere over there. And I'm going to pop over to heading, keep it in altitude hold mode. See how it does. Making decent speed at this power setting, about 160 knots on the indicator. It's not a massively fast aeroplane. A lot of drag with that fixed gear and big braced wings and all that kind of stuff. Let's pop the weather radar on. Doubt there's going to be anything for us to pick up. I was flying this around in some more, shall we say, challenging weather earlier, and it was painting stuff up on that, so it's pretty handy. I believe we are picking up the NDB now, so we can get an ident. May not be able to because I don't have the headphone simulation mode thing turned on, but might be happening just really, really quiet. Right, so since we've got a little bit of time before we reach our destination, not that much time, but just enough time to do a little bit of demo, so I'm going to turn the landing lights back on. So you can see outside the airplane how we've got these big bright lights on the leading edge of the wing here. Now if I pull the right landing light breaker, you can see the right landing light has gone out. Pop it back in again, and it's come back on. So all the breakers work exactly how this should do, which is very impressive. I'm going to pop this into nav mode now. See, it comes up with GPS, which is the correct enunciation. Apparently one of the areas where this isn't as accurate as it could be is modelling the drag that would come from the propeller in flight. So I'm going to start descending probably about 10 miles away, just to give us a slightly more comfortable rate of descent. I wonder if I could load a procedure. Oh, well, there we go. Let's try and do an NDB for 3T. With the transition at the, yeah, at the beacon. Oh. Won't let me load it. Well, it's in the system, but for some reason it won't let me load it up. That's annoying. That would have been cool to do it in an RNAV overlay. Never mind, I've got the plate up. So I can show you what we could be doing here. So, coming in from this sort of angle, it would be a direct join into the hold. So we'll kind of come into the hold, fly it outbound. In fact, is this all RNAV? It is. Oh dear, can't do without GPS. Oh well, I'll make it visual then. Never mind. It's going to try and show off the systems of the airplane a little bit there, but sadly, I've been thwarted. So all sorts of useful displays on this thing. You see we've got a traffic display here, which all works. Procedures, all sorts of stuff. I should really know this a little bit better because most of our airplanes at work have got these things fitted. No, it's looking okay. Let's see if this can do it. Maybe 3-2. Enter. Enter. Yeah. Do it. Activate. Oh, there we go. We got it. Awesome. All right, let's do it. So what height we got to be over the 1,500 feet? All right, let's get going down. Right, let's go into VS. In fact, let's not. Let's set this first. So 1,500 feet. VS. And let's have a fairly sprightly rate of descent. One of the great things about the GTN is it gives you this kind of banana bar thing to show you where your descent's going to bottom out. So you can see we can probably reduce our rate of descent just a touch. Still make it to the beacon in time. Now, all of you saying, why on earth aren't you using the instrumentation and flying it raw data? Well, as I said, it's an RNAV-based procedure, so there's no DME on the Scilly Isles, there's just an NDB. So in order to fly this thing, fly the hold and the outbound procedure from the hold, you actually do need a GPS, unfortunately. Maybe I'll find some kind of raw data procedure to show you when I do the full review of this thing. So what I always teach students to do, because this is the same autopilot as we have on our DA42s, well, some of them have got integrated, but I'm not going to talk too much about that. So what I usually teach students to do in the descent is to check all the modes. So we've got nav on GPS, VS at 900 feet per minute, alt arm selected at 1500. So that's exactly what we want for this descent. It's always a good idea to double check your modes, especially when you're in a descent. Because the last thing you want is kind of busy yourself with something else in the cockpit, and then the aeroplane blows through the level that you want to level off at, or indeed flies you into the ground, which wouldn't be an enormously fun way to spend your afternoon. So in anticipation of lining up on the final approach track, I am going to put the CDI bar onto that for now. So let's assume that we've idented this thing. Like I said, you probably need the headphone simulation turned on to actually hear that. Final approach course 324 is set. There's no final approach fix or anything like that. We're just looking for this FN32 waypoint, and that's when we're going to start descending. It's a standard 3-degree glide slope. Going to be about 100 knots down the approach, so it's going to work out just over 500 feet per minute, assuming that that's our ground speed. And decision altitude is going to be 500 feet, so we can pop that on our or decision height, sorry, 418. Right, so this is a radar altimeter, so you need to pick up the height rather than the altitude. So let's set it about there. There we go, that'll do. Okay, so alt capture. Remember to feed the throttle back in. Is it going to capture? Is it going to capture? That's the real question. It is. Maybe my barrow is not set correctly on here. 1023. I forget what everything else was set to. It should be. Slightly strange, didn't really capture the altitude as well as I hoped it would. Oh great, the procedures just completely disappeared off it, that's cool. Oh, that sucks. No idea why it's done that, it's just disappeared. Oh well. I guess we're doing it visually then. I guess this is the issue that happens when you fly over a waypoint. It just kind of cancels your whole flight plan when you fly over the end waypoint. That's not how it should work in real life. See if I can stick it in. No. Won't even let me do that. Oh, that's rubbish. Let's just kind of circle around and try and set it up long final. Let's have a stage of flaps. Tell you what we could have done. Put that thing. Made ourselves a virtual VOR. Okay, let's run the before landing checklist real quick. Seats and seatbelts secure, fuel cells both on, oxygen off, yeah, landing lights are on, inertial step as required, let's turn it on. Permission lever high idle, prop full forward, flaps as required, yeah, autopilot disconnected, okay, cool, it's done. Let's put the taxi lights on as well. See the runway just there, so we'll make a kind of a bit of a banana approach. Another stage of flapping. And it's the last stage, full flap now. Props full forward. A very inconveniently placed tree right on short final now, that's handy. Hop over that and then see if we can stick it on the runway. Reverse. That fantastic short field performance. Jeez. Even though we floated down half the runway, still got stopped in time for the taxiway. That's what you want. Okay, flaps coming up. Transponder set to standby. Oh look, there's a US Navy Goshawk visiting the Scilly Isles, that's interesting. Set to low idle on here, strobes, and landing lights can go off. Got lady marshalling us there. So, go that way, okay, let's go that way then. Probably minced that person there, but never mind. Okay, brakes on. Make sure we've done the after landing, so flaps are up, pitot heat off, Strobe lights are off, taxi recogs are on, landing lights are off, condition levers low idle, weather radar, yep, pop that onto standby now so we don't microwave the ground crew. Inertial step is required, it's on. Shutdown steering, park brakes on, avionics can come off. Standby alternator can come off. Fuel boost pump is off. Heat and aircon off there. Power lever idle for 1 minute. Well, I believe it probably has done, so that's good. Propeller lever feather, so pull it all the way back to this point here. Pull it into the feathering. Detent. And condition lever cuts off. Okay, pop the beacon off now, and the navs and the battery can come off as well. Fuel selectors both off, oxygen is off, and inertial separator can come off. There we go. So there you have it, a first look at the Analogue Cessna mod? Is it a mod? It's a paid mod, I guess, by Black Square. Very impressive as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of things in this package. They've changed a lot of stuff around with this aircraft. It certainly is no longer a very basic default aeroplane. It's certainly a lot more of a challenge to fly. I am going to have to reserve judgment a little bit until the final version is out as to whether I think it's worth it or not, and also until my friend who has flown the real King Air has had a look over it as well and can tell me what's good and what isn't on there too. But hopefully this gives you a bit of a taster to whet your appetite. Please head over to the Just Flight website and have a read through the manual, that sort of stuff if you are interested in this, because there is already a lot of documentation available on there and you can read through all sorts of stuff that this thing does, which I may have missed on this video. So there you go. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this little look at this aeroplane regardless. If you did, please consider dropping us a like or a thumbs up or whatever you want to call it, and also maybe subscribing to the channel. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.